Boundless Authenticity podcast, where we discuss everything related to the evolution of human consciousness. Kate Thorvaldsen, author, speaker, and ET experiencer, is back with me on this episode, and we're just having a chat about consciousness and spiritual concepts. Some of these concepts may be new to you, or you may already know them, and perhaps you might have some opinions on them. If you do, I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email at jahantwsator@gmail.com, and I will read them and respond to them on future episodes. You never know, you might have some insight to share with us, or even some stories. If you haven't checked out the previous episode with Kate, I highly recommend you do so before listening to this one. She has a fascinating story and also has great books you can buy on katethorvaldsen.com. Anyways, I won't flap my gums at you for too much longer. Let's jump into the discussion. So Kate, how's things been going with your work?
It depends a little bit on what kind of work, but I'm working on my house, yes. It's going slowly, but so I will not be done before this winter. So I think I will be staying in this house till spring.
Oh yeah, the life of a carpenter, right?
Yes.
So how's your new book coming?
Well, I haven't had any more time to work on it, but that's the good thing, because when I'm done with all the small things that I have to do in my house, then I'm totally free to just work on my book this winter. So then we will finally see the results and being done with it.
I'm very curious about what's inside that book. I need to know.
A lot of people are wondering about that. That book is called The Creation, where consciousness and the physics meet.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about that. Not what's in the book, but tell us about the premise of the book.
It's always difficult to explain that kind of things, because a lot of things that I'm working on is difficult to find the right words, and it's also, when you're taking things out of a bigger context, it will also be hopeless for other people to understand what I'm talking about. So when that book is done, they have to start on page 1 and not to jump into the book and try other chapters to understand it. But this book is about the total, the everything. And from the biggest picture of our not only our universe, but our universes, because there are multiple universes outside of our own. And that's the one side of the book. And the other side of the book is that you are going down to the tiniest of it all, the neutral building blocks.
Interesting. So when you say there are many universes, what are you talking about?
Again, it's difficult to explain. If I'm just going making it simple, is that there are millions and trillions of other universes outside of ours, but they're all put into a system.
Oh, you're just making me want to ask more questions. Because you say they're put into a system, and I want to know what that means.
It's the way, in my book, I will explain how they are getting started. It's like our Big Bang, how we started. They all have the same process and the same beginning.
Okay. I think that's a very difficult concept to explain to anyone, because we can hardly wrap our heads around this one universe.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain. This is very difficult to explain, because you have to start with the beginning of the book, and you cannot just, I cannot just take pieces here and pieces here from inside my book and try to explain it, because the people who are listening or others, they will have no chance to understand it, because they have to start with the beginning.
Well, I wouldn't expect you to divulge much from your book either way, but it's a very interesting concept to unpack, because I don't think that the average person, even if they are spiritual, even if they have been on this path for a while, it's still difficult to comprehend the concept of other universes, because I've heard stuff about this before, and I've tried to explain it to, like, in friends passing and saying, I heard there's multiple universes and whatnot, and they were asking me questions, and I was like, hey man, I didn't come up with the theory. I have no clue what is going on.
Yeah.
They ask me things like, so when you say universes, is it exactly like this one? Is it multiple ones exactly like this? Is it creative? And it's like, I don't know, man. I just got here.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that a lot of the science people, the problem that they have to find a solution on their problems is that they are just diving into the mathematics. But the thing is that the universe or our existence is not just about the mathematics or the so-called physics. You also have to put into the consciousness, because there are two parts that has to work together to get things to work.
Right. So let's move on to that topic, because that's one of my favorite things to talk about. In your view, based on your work and everything that you've experienced, what is consciousness?
Oh, again, it's difficult to explain, so you actually will understand it. I must just try to make it in a drawing kind of a picture, so people perhaps will understand a little bit of what I'm talking about. Let's say you are seeing an atom and electrons that are flying around. A lot of scientists, they will say that, oh, there's so much empty space between the atom and the electrons. The thing is that there is nothing as empty space. So you have the consciousness that are between the atom and the electrons. But in my book, I'm going even further down. You have in the quantum physics and all this, you have M theory and Planck's and God knows what they have, but I'm going also beyond that one.
Fair enough. I mean, I think people tend to have a very simplistic view of consciousness. And when I ask that question, they tend to give the same answer. It's like, well, consciousness is awareness. And I'm like, well, that seems like it would be a part of it, just not the whole thing. Like, how can you really quantify or claim to know exactly what it is? Like, I'm still trying to figure out half of what happens on a daily basis.
Well, a lot of people think that, ask me, are you a physicist or a cosmologist or anything like that? I can just tell that, no, I'm not. I have a completely different background, and I'm not sure if it actually is my UFO experiences that has something to do with it, that helps me do these things. But I also know, and now from experience, that everyone can do the same thing that I'm doing. And the thing is that everything we are looking for as answers or the solutions, everything are, let's say if you're looking at the universe in total, every thought that we have been thinking ever, you or me or past generations, all thoughts or idea or evolution is out there as a print in the universal fabric, and everyone can access it. But the thing is that sometimes you have to, for me, when people are asking me, are you still working on the book? And I said, yes, but you started on it for so many years ago. And I said, yes. The thing is that you have to understand some of the concept first, and then when you understand it, then you will always get a new question. And when you have the right question, you will get more answers. And for me, the answers comes as downloads. And I'm not writing automatically writing or anything like that. For me, the download for me is, it's like I can see you or the room around me, and then suddenly I'm not seeing that anymore. It's like I'm seeing this inside film, and this film explains it so well. And you can see things as pictures, and you see them most of the time as a film, because when you see the process as a film, then you will understand it more easily. And the most fun part is that when you have received one download, you will always remember it because it has become a part of you. I so wish that the school system on Earth base would work that way. Bye-bye to studying and studying and studying 24/7 and still not remembering it.
I hear you on that, because one of the things that I teach, which I can already hear my listeners going, oh no, he's going to talk about this again, isn't he? Probably getting ready to turn it off. But it's the subconscious mind. I feel like the subconscious mind is that thing that taps us into everything. And we have access to everything that we need. It's just we don't know how to listen for that. And they're not going to teach us that in schools. It'll be a long, long time in evolution of consciousness before they let us get back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone can do the things that I'm doing. So, but the thing is that I didn't start doing it. It just happened. So I was, of course, I do have my UFO experiences. I also have a lot of other paranormal experiences over my life, but this one was quite different. And I can actually start with the beginning of it. That started the whole thing. And that was back in, I think it was back in 95, 96. So it's quite a long time ago. I was standing in my mother's basement. I had a sewing room there, and I was making a wedding dress for a client. And I have a deadline. And trust me, physics or anything that has to do with the universe was not on my mind at all. So I was standing there working, and then suddenly I starting to hear these numbers that was coming. And I was thinking, okay, what's this? And then it repeated itself a few times. And instead of me seeing what I was doing, I guess I stopped doing what I was doing, because in the next month I'm seeing this kind of a strand with pearls. And then there's another strand with pearls that comes, and it builds up and builds up. So it looks like a DNA without bindings, and it's continuing to become quite, what's the word for it? The English word disappeared out of my head. Complex, very kind of very complex DNA looking. And then in the next moment, it was like someone was dragging my consciousness out of my back of my head. I've actually heard other experience the same thing too, and that's nice. I just heard that yesterday. But my consciousness was dragged out from the back of my mind, and it was like you were zoop out, and you were not out in the universe here or in the sky or anything. It was like I was hanging outside in nothingness, outside of everything, and I was looking in at something that looked like a huge donuts with pearls, and there was this very, very beautiful light that was around it. And I was there for not long time, but I remember I was thinking that, wow, and I felt quite humble about the view I was looking at, because I was getting the understanding that this was the total. And then they dragged me in again, but just into one of the spheres. And inside that sphere, it looked like the atom and the electrons, but it isn't. But I'm using the word atom and electrons because then people will picture-wise understand how I'm trying to explain it. So the thing is that one of the so-called electrons that is flying around becomes unstable, and then they explode, and that is our Big Bang. So then I was following the process all the way down to how they were forming the galaxies, how all of it was working together. And then after a little time, then I recognized my own little solar system, and I was, boom, back in the basement.
That is very interesting. So what I'm hearing you explain is that you had an experience where your consciousness was hijacked, basically, and you were shown the creation process. Yeah.
And the thing is that everything else that I have been received over the years, everything fits into this model. So it's like that you are, let's say that if someone's going to explain you how a car works, normally you would see the entire engine first, and then you learn how the different parts works afterwards. Because if you were just learning one piece of the engine, you would have difficulties to understand how it fits together with all the other parts. And yeah.
Right, I get what you're saying. That's a complex one. I mean, this could go any direction at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's like that famous picture, of this elephant that are having five blind physicists, that one is holding the trunk, one is holding the tail, one is holding the leg, and everyone is explaining, but they have no idea that it's actually an elephant.
Yeah, it is exactly like that. I think that we have very little understanding of what consciousness is. And I see my chicken agrees. And I also think that as long as we have that limitation, there's going to be more arguments about the wrong things to do with that than anything that's going to really be a helpful discussion. I'll tell you one thing. I've tried to listen to all these different types of people, and I don't understand one lick of what they're really talking about. I've heard like, what's his name? Michio Kaku. I've heard him talk about stuff. I don't understand what the heck he's talking about. The only person that I've come close to understanding anything is Nassim Haramein.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think he explains the best. But apart from that, I have no clue what anybody else is saying about this. I am just as lost as anybody else. Yeah,
the thing is for Nassim is that he also had the English language. The English language is not my first language. So this topic is difficult for me to understand, to explain in Norwegian in the first place. And then we're going to explain it in a foreign language. So I will always trying to look for the easiest word to use. Of course, if I was a scientist, I will have a lot of more words to use.
What do you think is the biggest limitation that people have in reaching a point of spiritual awareness to where they know that they are, for a certainty, a fragment of consciousness inside of a vessel?
I think that we are too much run under the programs, sub-programs that we are creating in our early stage of life. From we are born till we are around 7 years old, most of the stuff that we are experiencing, we are downloading in our brains as programs, and they will run in one way or another through the rest of our lives. And other experiences will build on that. So that will be, if the start is bad, the outcome is normally getting bad too. And the thing is that most of our parents, they are a result of their own programming from their time. And most people, sadly, they're not curious. It's like when you're a little kid, you're curious. You want to figure out things. Why is that one green? Why is that green? Why do you have a nose? Why do you why? Everything. But when we come to a certain age, we have to put our noses into books that we find boring. So probably that can kill a lot of our curiousness. So because if you are curious, you will always figure out new ways to learn something new. I'm not sure how it is in your country, but here in Norway, I think that when most people are done with their education, and their education, of course, it goes to a certain type of work that you want to have. Most of those jobs, they are not curious. It's not that they have to invent something, figure out something or anything. They are just using the things that they have learned and doing that till they are going out with pension. So most people, when they're done with the school, how many of them are actually studying new things? Let's say a grown-up person thinks, okay, I see plants every day. I want to figure out how they work.
Yeah. It's the same way here. You kind of get funneled into a particular life that's predetermined for you. And they try to tell you who you should be. And they definitely try to keep you in the programming of whatever the national idea of what you should, how you should dress, how you should talk, how you should behave, kind of music you like. And most people don't deviate outside of that. They're not curious. And unfortunately, it's been my experience that a lot of people from this country, they don't ever get the chance to go outside. So they don't even really understand. Even if they know that there's a whole big world out there, they don't understand that there's anything else beyond 166 square miles, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
So it's
But the thing is that you're actually seeing the same thing when it comes to professors in physics or cosmology and other things, because a lot of students, they want to learn about how things works. They go to school, they have a teacher who tells them this is how it works. But if you are trying to put in something different than the school book says, then they will almost cut you down. So I think that if you're a scientist, you should have an open mind to new things and explore. I was so lucky in 2018, I was at a conference in Bulgaria, and that was a Professor Lazar Filippo. He was a professor in quantum physics and astrophysics for 30 years. I think he also was a part of some kind of a space program or something. He had an open mind, and he clicked when we were talking together. He could actually understand what I was trying to tell and talk about. And I also asked him, what are you working with as a problem in school? And the thing that he was coming with, luckily for him, I got the download on this kind of topic just a few days before I was actually going to Bulgaria. So I could give him the answer straight away. So his jaw was almost falling down to the ground, but he understood what I was saying, and it matched with the thing that he was working on.
That is such an interesting synchronicity.
Absolutely. So, no, for me, it is very important to get the question and getting the right question, because you can't ask. Let's say if you're putting let's put it this way, you can't just ask the universe for an answer. You will not probably not understand. You will have to understand other basics first before you can get to different kind of questions.
I hear you on that. And I think back to what we were saying about curiosity, a lot of people, they don't know how to question the things that come up in their minds. And they're so convinced that the thing that they're thinking is it, when there's so many different layers to things. And one of the questions that I've been asking a lot on like my Instagram stories is, how aware are you of how aware you are?
Yeah. That's a good question, because most of the time you are thinking and you are acting. Let's say someone is doing something to you, or say the wrong word, or didn't do the thing that you were wanting them to do, or anything like that. And then most people are just reacting. They are not thinking about, why did I react the way I did? And there are so many layers.
And even when they do, it's like they're trying to blame someone for something, and it's like, well, people are going to do what they do. You're either going to let them take you to the grave, or you're going to try to understand yourself a little bit better.
Yeah. No, it's really important to understand yourself. I think that one of the topics we were talking about the last time when it comes to consciousness is how we think that everyone else is responsible for what is happening to us. For example, for example, a partner. Most people, they are finding another person that they want in their life, and they are giving that person the responsibility for their own happiness. And when the other person is saying something wrong or not saying what you want them to say, then you are getting angry or frustrated and all the kind of things, because you have been giving away your power to the other person.
Well, I tell you what, I'm a frustrating person to be around because I ask a lot of questions. I've usually got another question in between the middle of the answer to the original question I asked. So I get it. And the one thing, I think we talked about this last time, of course the audience is not privy to that because we didn't hit record. We had a blast. I think we talked for like an additional hour and a half about everything.
That one should have been recorded.
Yeah, it should have been. And that's why we're doing this one. But, I try to give people a little bit of grace when they say this, but there's things like, this person said this thing, or this person did this thing, and it made me feel this way. And it's like, well, hold on. that alone didn't make you feel anything. You're generating these emotions inside your body. And so you're really responsible for what you feel. You're not responsible for what the other person says or does, but you are really supposed to take responsibility for how you feel. And I think, especially in the times that we're living in now, I honestly thought, and I'll be completely honest here, and you probably correct me if I'm wrong, which I'm totally open to, because I do look up to you, and there's something that you said to me that was very powerful, but I'll talk about that later. Is it changed? Well, I shouldn't say it changed, but it reminded me of something that I need to work on. But it's that some people, they're doing the best that they can, and they are spiritual, so to speak. They are on this process of what they call awakening. So they believe that they're on some kind of a spiritual journey, but then that becomes the thing that is the noose around their neck, because it narrows their focus towards one way of thinking, and they're not thinking about the greater and bigger picture, and they're not progressing as they should, because what they're trying to do is to get involved in practices and different ideas that are coming from perhaps the new age or something, but they don't really understand the inner work, the things that you have to get into your brain and rewire, the psychology of things. They don't seem to be able to monitor their internal dialogue, notice their belief systems, and they certainly don't have much of an idea how to get rid of those things or change them for themselves. And they kind of end up being like crystal clutchers, or they get wrapped up in like the tarot card reading and all. They look to all of these things to inform them, when really everything is already inside of them, and these things are just tools for them to use. And so they miss the boat. And I thought,
most people are looking for answers on the outside.
Yeah, and I honestly thought, like with the massive shift in consciousness that has happened, I honestly thought that more people would be to a higher level of awareness by now. And I think that that's probably my expectation of the world coming into play. But I really thought that it would be a lot different than it is right now. And I always ask the question, because it's a possibility. I mean, it's not to be negative or anything like that, but I do think that perhaps some of the powers that shouldn't be are doing their best. And when I say doing their best, they are working day in, day out to create more things that we can kind of be like squirrels. Oh, look at this nut over here, or look at that nut over there. Let's chase that and get involved in that.
Yeah. Everything that are created on the outside is old news, and we are so busy in our minds to look at everything that has manifested outside here already, instead of understand that most of the stuff that you are experiencing are old news that you have been dragging to yourself by your unconscious thought. Because most people, they are living their lives and just responding to what is happening around them, instead of putting themselves into the chair and say that I'm going to create my own future. Dr. Joe Dispenza is very good at explaining this kind of thing. Also, Abraham Hicks, you can find them also on YouTube. And Greg Braden is also very into this. And that is that if you are always hoping for something to happen, then when you're hoping, you are in lack. Or if you're praying for something to happen, you are in lack. And then you will continue to live in lack. But if you take the creation into your own hands and sit down and visualize that you have the thing that you want already, but it's not just enough to just visualize it, but if you can feel that you already have it. Imagine how would you feel if someone told you that you won $1 million in a lottery? You would be, yay! You would be all over the place. You can't sit there, ooh, I win 1 million in lottery, and you don't feel nothing. that's bad. That's bad creation. But if you really, really feel that you have won the lottery or won someone's love, or the best thing is actually not to focus on a certain person. You should just focus on that you are having the perfect partner, even if you don't have it, and you had already figured out how that person should be, not focusing on the lacks, but focusing on how the person should be. And you should become that, all those acquirements yourself. And then you should feel the really, really good connection. Because the thing is that if you sit down and you imagining that you are attracting and know that you already have the perfect partner, the thing is that if your system has a lot of clutter and the person that you want to attract has a lot of good possibilities that you don't have in your system, you will not attract that person, because you have to become that person to get the person come to you. It's like physics. It's like the wavelength, but you have to have the same wavelength to actually match together.
It's true. And you used a great example. So my chicken agrees once again. You used a great example there of the person wanting a relationship. Most people don't look at it from the perspective of, okay, there's a bunch of stuff I have to do in order to meet the requirements of what I'm asking for. It's kind of like if you want to drive a car, well, you have to learn how to drive. You can't just get in it and speed off. You might hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens, because a lot of people hear about the law of attraction and they don't quite understand it. And they end up hurting a lot of people, and they hurt themselves because their expectations are set so high, and they just think that they close their eyes real tight and make a wish that it's just going to land in their lap somehow and they don't have to do anything. And they also expect that when they're looking for like a partner or something, what they're really saying is that this person has to be the exact way that I want them to be for me, and I don't have to do anything. When really what you're asking for is the most compatible soulmate in the highest and best way for everyone, not just you and the other person. And it's the same with everything else that you want. It's for the highest and best good of the whole. And most people just want to get more stuff.
If I'm just going to make a very, very simple example, it's like that. Let's say that you have been lied to before and you want an honest man. Then you should look at yourself. Are you honest to yourself? Because an honest man will not be dating you if you are dishonest or talking behind other people's backs or having a lot of the behavior that most people, they're not even thinking about that they're actually doing. But if they're having some soul research, they will see, they should be looking at their own bad habits. And all people have their bad habits until they waking up and they see them and they stop doing them.
Yeah, and there's no set list of spiritual qualities that you should strive for. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lifelong thing. You just kind of have these days where you're like, oh, that was in there. Oops, better take that out.
Yeah. No, the thing is that most likely you attract a person that are what you focus on. If you have a lot of bad things or bad experiences or in the past and so on, and all of this is kind of lying there in your subconsciousness, and you're focusing a lot on that I don't want a man with this or that, they will end up with a new man who has all the bad things too, because that's what they are focusing on.
Yeah, it's true. And I like to use the example of, I go on a lot of podcasts because people are curious about what it is I do. And I talk about the subconscious mind, and I tell you, listen, if you're watching your favorite TV show, let's say it's Criminal Minds or The Walking Dead, well, that's exactly what you're going to create in your life in some form, even if you don't think that's true. The biggest mistake that we make is we think that thing can never happen to us. And like you said, a passing thought is just a passing thought, but everything is recorded.
Yeah, everything is recorded. And of course, the more you focus on a thought, the more real it will become. It doesn't matter if you think I don't want that. The point is that if you're focusing on it big time, you will get the things you don't want.
Yeah, and the subconscious doesn't know I don't want that.
No, it just reacts to the how strong the stronger the signals you are sending out. That's what it responds to. It doesn't care. The universe does not care if it's positive or negative.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the answer to a lot of people ask me questions. Well, why are children in Africa starving? And it's like, because you won't give them any food.
No, it's not that.
I just do that to mess with them. And they're like, what? How dare you? Like, no, I mean, if you see a problem, how does that make you think about the problem? Are you catastrophizing? Are you having really bad emotions about it? Because that's not helping the situation either. And chances are there's a direct link there to why you see suffering, because it's a part of you.
Yeah, no, it's very tricky, that one, because if I see something bad with animals, that hits my heart immediately, and I feel so bad. And if there's someone who's doing something bad to the animal, I can feel very, very strong anger at the same time. And but I also know that if I'm continuing focusing on it, it will bring me more of it. So there are those that probably will say that, oh, if you're just focusing on the good stuff, you are closing your eyes to all the bad negativity stuff that are happening in the world. But the thing is that you are not closing your eyes to the bad stuff that is happening. You are responding differently to it. Again, I can go back to the partner. If you sit down and you feel immensely happy about the perfect partner that is not there, and then it comes a time, it goes a little while, and let's say that this partner shows up. So you are happy before he came, and you are still happy when he came, but then something happens and you find that, okay, you will split apart, or this person will go forward to something else. Then you will continue being happy, even if the so-called bad stuff happened, because you are happy to begin with. You didn't need that other person to come into your life to make you happy. So you are reacting differently to life if you are seeing life in a different way. If you are stronger inside, or your happiness is more solid, you can reach out and help the animal or help others, but you will use your energy on doing that instead of using your energy on condemning the situation.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of like a tennis match. I mean, if somebody hits the ball at you, are you going to be like, oh my God, there's a tennis ball coming at me? Or are you going to hit it back? You always have that choice. Yeah, you always have that choice.
But of course, you can choose how to react. When I have met people that has been nasty or behaving not in a nice way, instead of feeling offended or angry at them, I just look at them as humans and think that, okay, I'm not the problem. You are not a happy person, and you are most likely struggling with something, and it's coming out on me or anything like that. I'm not saying that it's okay for them to do it, but I can understand why they're doing it.
Yeah, it's
I'll just pull the ball back, but I'll pull the ball back in a different way.
Yeah, it's like, basically what we're saying is like, it's your mental contribution to that thing that you see that makes a difference. And this brings me to the thing that you said to me that put me in check, and I liked it. Most people don't like to be put in place by things, but you were telling me that when you just meditate on love, and you will never be able to judge any person ever again if you really truly meditate on that.
No.
And it caught me off guard because I had been feeling very frustrated for that week about something. And I was like, you know what? She's right. And that actually helped me to see differently in that situation. So I got to say thank you for that, because it really just kind of like reopened the floodgates, if you will. And I realized that because of how I was feeling about that situation, a lot of other stuff in my life had started to slow down. A lot of the things that I really enjoyed. And I was like, man, well, why does it seem like everything's starting to get pretty gloomy here? I don't feel any different. And see, that's the biggest mistake that we make. I don't feel any different. I don't think I'm doing anything different. And it's to ask yourself that question, well, surely something's going on. What could be going on? What could all of this mean? What could this mean about me? And it was only when you said that I felt like it was just a direct message for me to go right back to that. And I realized that what I was doing was I'd stopped meditating on love daily. And I noticed that when things are not going the way that I want them to, it's always because gratitude and love have taken a backseat.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. Because when you do have the inner peace, someone else that are around you who doesn't have the inner peace, he will not tip you off your chair. So it's so simple.
Yeah, it's so simple. It's so hard at the same time. It's whenever I say that to people, they're like, oh, so you don't have moments where you get angry? And I'm like, of course I do. That's the part of being a human. And all of that it's a technology, which implies that you have to work with it. Because you don't just sit in front of your computer and then stare at the screen. You have to turn it on first. You have to enter your password. And you have to do all kinds of things. If you want to check your email, you got to go through processes.
Yeah, absolutely. Normally, if I'm into some kind of situation, I'm glad I have a very quick mind. So I'm analyzing the situation quite rapidly. So for me, the thing is that when you have been analyzing yourself for a long life, and you have been experiencing hell and happiness and both sides of the story, then it's so much easier when you can stand with one foot in the bad and the good, and you can take a good calculated choice back as a response. But before you make the response, you also are aware of, if you go to the bad part, what will be the consequences of your words to that person. And if you think that, okay, the consequences will be this and this and this, and it's probably so much worse than actually the little thing that he was saying. So you don't say it, and you keep your feet standing more into the good part. But you're balanced. You have, every one of us has a good and a bad side, but it's having the knowing of both sides.
Yeah, people like to think that just because you are embracing more of your spiritual essence, that there's not going to be anything quote unquote bad about you. But sometimes the bad thing is the right thing. Whatever it is we're judging as bad, sometimes that's the right thing. And sometimes it's not there's no cut and dry method of doing anything. It's just, is it devoid of love or not? Did you do the best that you could? Is it the right thing? And I think people get hung up on trying to be a goody two shoes, and it causes them a lot of pain as well. And so I'm saying that in particular because, again, I've been getting a lot of that from clients and stuff in my coaching. Is like, well, why is your internal set point full of so much judgment towards yourself for having a tough moment? It's not helping.
No, the thing is that if you want to know yourself, you have to look at the bad stuff too. And most people, they are trying to push away their bad sides. But the thing is that if you do that, you will not understand the whole of you, because your bad sides, they are there because of perhaps programming in a very, very young age, then a lot of other experiences that is not has been dealt with. So they are there for a reason. No one is born evil. So if you are dealing with people that are bullying others or talking bad about others behind their backs, or angry people, they're people they are not happy. And of course that can be for several reasons, and that can be that other people did not do what they were expecting them to do. Then we're coming back to that point again. Or the point disappeared out of my mind for a split second here. Again, then you have what you are focusing on, what kind of mindset you are creating. If you are creating a positive mindset, you will kind of stay away from the negative. They will not appear in your life that much anymore as they do if you think you have a bad day.
I was telling a very dark story, but it had a positive resolution on a podcast that I was on. It's about something that I heard years ago where a drunk driver performed a hit and run and killed a small child. And the parents, at first they were angry about it. And it's the father of the child that actually, he sat back and he had a moment of clarity. And he realized that wanting to exact revenge on the person didn't make any sense. And so what he actually did was he tried to get to know the person. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it turned out that the reason why the person turned to alcohol is because they never had good parents. They were depressed about that. Yeah. And a lot of people, their jaw drops on the floor when I tell them that the way that story ends is that the father convinces the mother to be more forgiving. Maybe we should try to be forgiving of this person and embrace this person. And they actually ended up bringing the person into their family. Yeah. And so they lost one, but they gained another. And a lot of people have difficulty seeing past the point that was the purpose of the exercise.
Yeah, that's a very good story. I have heard something similar. That was actually happening in the courtroom, and that was, I think there was a son or the daughter that was killed, but they forgave that man who did it, and they also got to know him in prison, and they also got to know his family, so they starting to know what the background was.
Yeah, you got to try to understand people, even when it sucks. A lot of it sucks. To be honest, a lot of it sucks.
But the thing is that a lot of those, the bad stuff, let's say other people are so-called bad people, it's easier for you to attract them to come into your life and do something to you in your life when you are having that negative behavior. And not a lot of people are actually walking around and thinking that they are born under a bad star. But the thing is that they are convincing themselves that they are bad and everything bad is happening to them. But of course, then you have the mindset, what they are focusing on, and they are sending it out, and they are equally matched with the bad stuff that is coming in.
Yeah. One of my biggest things is turn off the news. Stop watching the news.
That's quite depressing. If you want to think that the human race have a future, you can't look at the news anymore.
Exactly. I mean, it's easy for us to see that it's their responsibility to tell us negative stuff. But it doesn't seem to be that simple for others. And what I tell them is that the television is such a dangerous device because within 90 seconds of watching TV screen, it shuts off your consciousness. It shuts off that prefrontal cortex. And so your ability to rationally process stuff or embrace things with a sense of spirituality is compromised. And the rest of your brain has to kind of compensate for that. And you're just blindly taking in input into this machine. And what does consciousness do a lot of the time? It reproduces what it sees. And so it doesn't mean that if you are watching the news and somebody shoots someone dead, that you're going to go out and shoot someone dead as a result. That's not necessarily it, but it's the fact that you witness that creates more. And it's the internal changes how we think and we feel about that, when we deal with that, it kind of takes it out of the pot, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
It slows it down a little bit.
Yeah. No, our society is like you're supposed to look cool, hard, tough, and that's even the fashion industry is playing on that. And then you have all the war games and all the things that is going on that are this kind of types that is really not making us positive as a human race when we're growing up. And of course, when we are adults, then we're looking at the news and all the other stuff, then you're having more violence, but this time real violence and not just a video game anymore. So when you're seeing too much of that, it does something to you, even if you would like it or not. You're becoming suspicious about other humans, and you will withdraw your... it's not that easy for so many people to reach out a hand to help a stranger.
It's so true. I saw a lady in the supermarket. She came up to me, actually. She was very, her clothes were tattered and torn and dirty. And she says to me, could you spare $1 so I can get something to drink? And I reached in my pocket. I pulled out like a whole bunch of money and said, are you serious? Like, you only want $1? But you could have anything you want right now. You only want $1? And she was very taken by that. She's like, I didn't realize I could ask for more. I was like, of course you can. Like, what do you mean? Like, that kind of bothered me, because it's like, it goes to show you how the average person is being at this time when we actually need more giving.
Yeah, that actually reminded me. This is around 10, 12 years ago, almost 15 years ago. Time's flying too fast. Me and my ex, we were at in Greek, Crete, and we were going to have a lunch. It was a dinner with his work, because his work, his company, the company he was working with, they were at Greek because they were having some classes and things like that. I was just following as a passenger, blind passenger. So I was free to do my stuff in the daytime when he was at his classes. But this evening we were going to this dinner. And while we were passing down the street, I noticed this woman that was sitting down in the street. She was also filthy. Clothing wasn't that good looking. And she has two very little kids. One was just a baby and the other one was just walking a little bit around there. And she was begging for the people to give her some money. And I was shocked when I saw how most people were reacting to her. They were either walking a big line around her, or they were throwing shit at her or being nasty. So I was just, what? I was thinking, this is a human being with two smaller kids, and people are acting in that way. They should be ashamed of themselves. And I was so, like that. And of course, then we attended the dinner. We were passing on the other side of the road, so we were not on her side on the road, but I managed to see the whole thing. But the thing is that when we came to the dinner place, then we were served, all of us were sitting like in a horseshoe, and we were served dinner. Then there were several kids there that was playing with the food, throwing the food around. And you have also a lot of most of the adults that was not even there. They were eating up their food, were just half plate or anything like that, and was sent back to the kitchen and thrown away. And I just clicked. And I said, and I was raising up from the chair. I don't remember exactly what I said, but everyone around there heard me and they saw me. And I said, I refuse to stay here. And I asked my ex how much money do you have in your pocket? And he gave the money to me, and I left. I didn't wait for dessert or anything else. I was just, no, I couldn't deal with them. I was just, no. So I went back to this woman, and she was still sitting there in the street, and I gave her all the money that I was getting from him. And she was so thankful And she was she was from Albania, and she was trying to explain to me in very, very poorly English that she was there and she had no home to stay in. They were almost living in some bushes someplace. But the thing is that she was so happy that someone actually saw her as a human being.
Yeah, that's what we're not doing these days. We're not seeing each other as human beings.
No.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a shame.
Yeah, I suppose.
We want a world that is peaceful and full of peace and love each other and having a nice time. But the thing is that peace starts with each one of us, each and every one of us. We have to create our own peace on the inside. When we are in peace on the inside, we will also, of course, naturally flow the peace to the outside. And when you're seeing people in distress, they are unhappy. So if you want to help them, don't be a mirror of their frustration or anger. Do the opposite.
Yeah, definitely.
But of course, to do that, you have to know yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Check yourself from the neck up before you wreck yourself. Yeah. What else did we talk about? There was some paranormal stuff. I think we shared some experiences, and I can't even remember exactly which ones they were. I thought of something that I wanted to tell you about. I figured I was either going to tell you on the podcast or I was going to send you an email and tell you about it. I remember one of my first experiences with stuff like that. It left me confused. I must have been about 4 years old. And by that time, I'd learned how to get up in the middle of the night and like get my own snacks and stuff, like pour myself some juice and stuff. So I was feeling pretty fancy about that. I remember I flicked on the kitchen light. You know, I waltzed in there like, I'm the man. I can pour my own juice now. Let's go. And I stopped. Something stopped me in my tracks. And it felt like I shouldn't go any further. And when I looked around the corner, I saw a young girl in a long white dress standing there. And I was like, what's happening? I started to step back a little bit. And when I peeked around the corner again, she was gone. And I told my mom about that. And she said to me that she'd also had that same experience. And it looks like Faith. And I said, well, who's Faith? And that was when she revealed to me that when she was a young girl, when she was 6 years old, her parents had a baby that died. She only lived for 3 months. And they called her Faith. And so that was probably my very first paranormal experience.
I'm trying to remember when I had my first one. I'm not sure. If you take away the UFO stuff, that happened, of course, that happened when I was 3 years old. But when it comes to the paranormal, I think there's been tiny incidents, but I think that when I was around 10 years old, 8 till 10 years old, the house we were living in, there was this kind of a shadow that was kind of in the background following us kind of all the time. And I think it was my mother. She saw this also. And one day that she saw it, she just took a look over her shoulder and said, okay, you can just stay there, do whatever you want. And then she could actually hear footsteps, and it walked out and slammed the door and went. Never came back.
That is wild. I'm not sure what happened to me when I saw Faith, but after that, it kind of opened up something. I think it probably opened up my mind a bit, because shortly after that, I started seeing a man in the clock. So we had a big clock that it was a painting of the ocean, and there's boats on the horizon and stuff like that. The sun is setting, and then it had a clock in the top right hand corner. And I would just sit there and look at the clock, and I'd start laughing. My mom would ask me, what are you laughing at? And it would be like, there's a man. You don't see the man in the clock? She'd be like, no. And she'd be like, shh, you can't say that, though. You're going to scare your father. And that kind of was a moment where I actually, as soon as my senses began to open, I had to learn to turn them off, because you can't, you can't say those things or you'll scare your father. And I still remember it a little bit. It was a man with a brimmed hat, and he would just be standing there. Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah. You got some company. It's not only you that have animals on your side. The old man coming inside here to have a look to see what's going on.
To know.
Yeah.
Oh, he's cute. He's like, I don't want to be on the podcast. Get me out of here.
Yeah. I hear you sometimes stick his nose inside and have a look to see what I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah, I guess you want your food, eh? Just sits down there looking at me.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Yeah.
He's ready for some munchies.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm waiting for now is he's starting with his really, really serious meowing. So that could be a funny podcast. The chicken in your place and the meowing in my place would be quite acquired.
Hey, we'll probably get 1 million views for that. And all you gotta do is type in cat video. Cat plays piano.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Kate, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Not tonight.
Knowing us, we're going to hang up and then we're going to talk about the life and universe, and it's going to be like a brilliant conversation.
Then you have to record it without me knowing it.
And then it's going to be like, oh, damn it, we got to do a part 3. So,
yeah. Now we can do a part 3 as just paranormal stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to put some thought to that and tell a lot of stories and stuff, because I think that that's what people want more of as well. There's a lot more people waking up and they're having a lot of these experiences, but they don't have a frame of reference, and they're a little bit scared to tell other people that, hey, this is happening to me. What do you think? And the more we talk openly about this kinds of stuff, the more they can have some kind of a closure moment, maybe, and acceptance and embrace it.
No, when it comes to the paranormal, I have both good and bad stuff that I have experienced. So this is plenty to take off.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to keep everybody on listening for longer than an hour this time. So, Kate, thanks for being on the Boundless Authenticity podcast. My birthday was yesterday, and I was looking forward to today because this is my birthday present. So thank you.
A happy birthday for the day who was.
Thank you.